Behold the light of the heavens!
It is wondrous!
To the path, onward! We follow.
You ever worked for years, years, to achieve some huge goal? You know, a promotion, a degree, some personal milestone you've been aiming for, only to finally get there and feel this strange emptiness. That, okay, I made it, so now what feeling? It's a surprisingly human thing, and it's right at the heart of what we're talking about today. We're diving into the story of one of history's most famous kings, but not at his beginning. No, we're looking at him at his absolute peak, when he had everything he ever wanted, and discovered it wasn't nearly enough.
So we're going to walk through this story in about 5 acts. We'll start in the king's palace, which looks perfect from the outside. Then we'll see the danger of even our best intentions. After that comes this stunning divine reversal of expectations. Then we'll feel the raw emotion of a king who is just completely overwhelmed. And finally, we'll land on what it means to find a home that's not built by human hands, but by God.
All right, let's set the scene. We find King David at the absolute pinnacle of his life. The wars are finally over, the kingdom is secure, he's at peace. He's done it. He's achieved everything he ever fought for. But instead of satisfaction, this deep, profound restlessness starts to bubble up.
And this really brings us to the central question of this whole story, one that I think hits home for a lot of us. What do you do when you get to the top of the mountain you've been climbing your whole life, you look around, and the view just isn't what you thought it would be? That feeling, right there, is the engine that drives this entire narrative.
Just look at this journey. This guy starts as a shepherd boy. He gets anointed king over his own tribe, Judah. Then he has to wait 7.5 long years before he's finally anointed king over the entire nation of Israel. Then he captures this impenetrable fortress, Zion, and makes it his capital. And to top it all off, he builds himself this magnificent palace of imported cedar. He has literally built his kingdom from the ground up.
But it's right there, in this palace, at the very height of his success, that the emptiness hits him. He looks at his own luxury, his beautiful cedar house, and then he thinks about the Ark of the Covenant, the literal symbol of God's presence with his people. And it's just sitting in a tent. And this contrast, it just eats at him. It becomes an obsession, a problem that he feels like he has to solve.
So this spiritual anxiety, this restlessness, it pushes David to act. He's thinking, I've got to do something great for God. But as we're about to see, even the most sincere, well-meaning plans can go so wrong when they override God's specific instructions.
And David, well, he doesn't do things by halves. He gathers a massive procession. We're talking 30,000 elite men to bring the ark to his new capital, Jerusalem. There's music, there's dancing, it's a huge national festival. And his intention is totally pure. He wants to give God the honor he deserves. And right here, this is the critical mistake. In all his enthusiasm, David uses the method he's seen other nations use. He puts the sacred ark on a shiny new cart. It's efficient, it looks good, but it's not what God commanded. The law was crystal clear. The ark was so holy it had to be carried reverently on the shoulders of the priests, the Levites.
And just like that, the party comes to a screeching, terrifying halt. The oxen stumble, and a man named Uzzah does what any of us would do. He instinctively reaches out to stop the ark from falling. And for that reflexive, well-intentioned act, he's instantly killed. It's a shocking, brutal moment that teaches David a hard lesson. God's holiness isn't something to be managed with human cleverness. It's not something to be treated casually.
So David learns his lesson. He waits 3 months, he studies the law, and he finally brings the ark to Jerusalem the right way, with humility and reverence. But even with the ark safe in the city, that old restlessness comes right back. He still sees the contrast, his palace versus God's tent. And he tells the prophet Nathan, that's it, I'm going to build God a magnificent temple.
And this right here is where the story completely pivots. David has this grand plan for God, but it turns out God has a much grander and totally different plan for David. The script is about to be flipped in the most dramatic way possible.
God responds through the prophet with this incredible question, and it just cuts right to the heart of David's ambition. Are you the one to build me a house? The subtext is just so clear. Wait, who do you think is in charge here? Since when do I, the creator of the entire universe, need a house built by human hands? And then comes the big reversal. God takes David's idea of building a physical house, a temple, and he turns it on its head. He says, "You're not going to build me a house. I'm going to build you a house, a dynasty, a family, a kingdom, a legacy that will last forever."
Now, to get how radical this is, we need a little context. You see, before this, God's big promises were to a whole people through Abraham, or they were based on obeying the law through Moses. But with David, the language becomes deeply personal. It becomes like family. God says, "I will be his father, and he will be my son." That's a whole new level of relationship.
And this fatherly love, it's unconditional. God makes this super sharp contrast with David's predecessor, King Saul. Remember him? When Saul disobeyed, God's favor was taken away. But God promises that for David's heir, even when he messes up, even when he needs discipline, God's love will never be taken away. This is a permanent, unbreakable promise. This, my friends, is grace.
So, how does this mind-blowing promise actually land on David? Well, his reaction is really the emotional and spiritual core of this whole story. The mighty king, the warrior, is brought to his knees, not by an enemy army, but by grace.
David just goes and sits before the ark, and this is his prayer. It's not some formal thank you. It's a prayer of just utter shock and bewilderment. Who am I? He is completely undone. He knows, deep in his bones, he didn't earn this. He knows his family has absolutely no claim to this kind of honor.
In this one moment, David's entire self-perception is just deconstructed. The man who conquered cities, the man who built a palace, realizes that he hasn't been the architect of his own life at all. He sees that every single step, from the shepherd's field to the throne room, was orchestrated by God.
His prayer continues with this line, and it is just filled with awe. He's basically asking, is this normal for you? Is this how you usually treat people? He recognizes that this level of unmerited, unconditional, eternal grace is not a human way of doing things. It's something else entirely. It's divine. And this brings us to our final act, where we tie all these threads together. David's whole journey, from a physical palace he built to a divine promise he received, it's really about the universal human search for one thing: a true home. You see, that empty feeling David had in his fancy cedar palace, it wasn't about architecture. It was a soul-deep homesickness. He was longing for a security that no building, no matter how great, could ever provide. What he was truly searching for was a permanent place, a lasting identity, and a secure future. And that is exactly what God gave him in this promise. God promised to build him a home that could never, ever be shaken.
And so this leaves us with a final question for our own lives. We all spend our days building things, right? Careers, reputations, financial security, you name it. But it's worth asking ourselves, are we building a temporary palace, something that looks impressive on the outside but is ultimately empty? Or are we seeking a true home, a place of rest and identity and security that's found not in what we can build for ourselves, but in what's already been built for us?
Rejoice!